Greetings, everyone. This is Rock'n'Roll Spot Conventional with the basic, what's more likely to be the finale, at least for the most part, of the 100 Bullets Retro Comic Review series. I'm looking at the final volume of the series, Wilt. Now, I say it will likely be the finale because, well, this is the final volume, but there was a mini-series focusing on Mono that did come out a few years after the series wrapped up. And I do intend to track down the remaining issues of that and potentially cover those. So, we'll see what happens. Anywho, where we left off in Volume 12. The trust had grown even smaller. And, however, one of the members, Miss Darcy, had begun making moves to counteract the Minutemen by hiring an assassin named Mr. Slaughter. Cole Burns had seen me jump ship from Graves' side to, honestly, kind of just being on his own side. And Graves and Dizzy were on their way to Seattle. So we begin at the Sands. Young Graves stands over two dead bodies. Makes a phone call during on the evening of January 21st, 1961. The phone call is to a young Augustus Medici. Shortly thereafter, Augustus then calls Javier Vasco. We then cut to the present where Graves is having drinks with Dizzy and is apparently in a good mood, which Dizzy says is rather unlike him. And Victor shows up. Oh, well, okay, so I was wrong. Cole had not yet left Volume 12, Cole had not yet left Graves' side. However, he did come upon the dead body of Mr. Branch, who had seemingly been killed by Echo. Elsewhere, a young kid is brought to a drug dealer. Speak to a drug dealer. Apparently, the young kid works a bit down the totem pole from said dealer, but Graves is trying to call Cole, but getting nothing. Which does slightly sour Graves' mood. So, Pip, short for Pippin, is introduced to let me get to see that. To Leon. Apparently, someone's making a move on the corner that Pip works for Leon. So, Leon gives Pip a gun. And say, you gotta handle, you got a problem, so you gotta handle it. Graves is still trying to reach Cole. And finally, the phone is picked up. And, also, I jumped the gun a little. Graves and Dizzy are not yet on their way to Seattle. But, apparently, Cole came across a group of homeless people and gave them his phone. One of them answers and explains that he was told that if Agent Graves were to call this phone, they're to tell him goodbye. And so, we get a bit of a reunion between Jackie and Cole. Before moving on to the next chapter. Remy's in a hotel talking to his mom. Apparently she got a dog. He'll be around here as soon as he can. Works a little crazy. Back with Pippin, he kind of looks around at home and, so it's, yeah. It's not the best environment for a young kid. We flash back to his meeting with Leon and, does get the information on, he does get some information on who else he's trying to sneak move in. The Medici house, Benito, briefly takes a look at, Megan, his father's lover, who's, his age, before she shuts the door in his face. Then goes outside during breakfast. He and Lano talk. Apparently, Benito wants to do something nice for his father. He wants to hand him a Minuteman. And Lano agrees to track down a Minuteman for Benito to hand over to his father, asking him if do you want a living Minuteman or a dead one? He says both, and then find them and deliver. And Benito then tells Lana one other thing: enjoy himself. Back with Pip, he's telling his crew what's going on. Gravy, basically his immediate superior in the organization. It kind of feels very similar to the organization from the first few seasons of The Wire. Passes on some more information to Pip and his crew. Back with Jackie, Cole, and Loop, they're at a diner when Lano calls. Explaining that Jackie and Loop are going to go to Chicago. Then Jackie hands the phone to Cole, surprising Lano by being alive. Then while they're having their conversation, Pip shoots who he thinks is his competition. Then Lano has Cole give Luke the phone, and Lano tells Luke to kill Cole. Before Cole kills him. We then go back to the early 60s. Javier, Augustus, and Graves are discussing the future over drinks and making their plans. At the diner, Luke hangs up the phone and begins to pull his gun out. Then we catch up with Mr. Slaughter, looking for a man named Rothstein. Turns out Mr. Rothstein is the man that enables Graves' game. Elsewhere, Dizzy and Graves are watching the news about the killing that Pip committed. Apparently, with the mayor apparently putting notice that the city won't tolerate losing any more children to gang violence. Graves rolls his eyes and chuckles at that. It's impossible. And he finds it funny. Or stupid, and apparently he finds stupid funny. Dizzy explains stupid makes her sad, though. When Graves asks why, she explains that because folks act stupid when it's their only chance, or their only choice. Graves disagrees, saying that people are stupid because it's easy. They don't want to choose. What they don't understand is being stupid is a choice. Admiring the silver platter, ignoring the shit heat on top of it. Which Dizzy promptly says Graves is full of. Turns out, though, that Pippin shot the wrong person. So Leon and Gravy are both quite angry about this. Gravy's trying to figure out where Pippin's at so he can take care of him. Back with Mr. Slaughter, Mr. Slaughter and Rothstein. Well, yeah. Slaughter's taking his time ending Graves' game. Meanwhile, Gravy is pumping Pippin's mom for information by offering drugs, which she is an addict, so. When all's said and done, Rothstein is dead, and Slaughter calls Miss Darcy and explains that Graves' game is over. No more attaches, no more revenge, no more 100 bullets. And we found out that Pippin is hiding in a storm drain. Meanwhile, Jackie and Cole are heading out to Scenic View. In the trunk is Luke, who's been rather viciously beat up. We then cut to Javier Vasco being called by Augustus Medici about the death of Abe Rothstein. And in fact, it was apparently done by a professional. Augustus immediately figures that Bosco's behind it, but, well, he isn't. After the phone call comes to an end, Augustus asks Benito to get in touch with Lano. Apparently both the Medicis as well as Graves and Dizzy are headed to Seattle. And it looks more and more like Cole and Jack are getting ready to execute Loop out in the woods. Back with the Gravy Leon Pitt storyline. Gravy's made inquiries. Doesn't know where Pip's at though. Talking to Pip's crew. And so Leon says, well, let me talk to them. And so saying that, hey, Pip's mom, I know where he's hiding. You don't need to worry. You don't need to worry about snitching him out. He's already been snitched out. But apparently, Leon does need Keen, one of the members of Pip's crew. As Jackie and Cole get to the spot where it seems like they're going to shoot Loop, Cole fires off a round and tells Luke to run. Firing at Loop as he runs, and with both his gun and Cole's gun. And then emptying the two pistols before kicking Cole square in the face. Meanwhile, Keen has met up with Pip. They talk, and we find out why, Keen actually does kind of respect Pip as much as he does. Keen had made a tasteless drawing on the chalkboard in second grade, and when the teacher went to get the principal, well, Pip got up and erased it. No drawing, no truth. And then Pip also reveals, though, that he's not named after Scottie Pippen, the basketball player. He's named after Pippen the Prince. This is from his mom's favorite video. It was a story about a kid Boy trying to get happy. Then Kane shoots Pitt. That's where it ends. That's where that plot thread ends. Jackie then says a few words to the at least unconscious, potentially dead Cole. Apparently they were talking about being Ronin, and well, Jackie says, what do you think Graves is? And so, on the news, Pip's body's been found. Reporter discussing it, or some security reporter discussing it, while a security crew is watching a house in town. Of course, they're not the only ones watching the house. So is Remy from much closer. He gives Graves a bit of a sit rep, explaining that job's not done, but I got eyes on it. It's about to be. However, Remy then gets a call from his aunt. Apparently, his mom had a heart attack. So, Graves and Dizzy arrive in Seattle, as do Augustus and Lano. And meanwhile, it turns out that Miss Darcy of the Trust is returning home, and Remy's got to move though. His window is not going to be open long, and he begins the assault on Miss Darcy's forces. And well, yeah, one against a dozen actually works out pretty well. Of course, it helps that he took precautions like an explosive on an electricity transformer. And various other precautions. And so the last member of Miss Darcy's security crew, however, sacrifices himself by having Remy shoot his oxygen tank, which explodes, blowing off Remy's forearms. Back in Seattle, players are arriving. And when Augustus goes inside to speak with Javier and Graves, Lano spots Dizzy. Keep in mind, this is the first time Lano's ever seen Dizzy. So he doesn't realize that, he's sworn to kill her. When Graves arrives to speak with Javier, he promptly grabs Javier by the throat. And seemingly, Augustus arrives. Lano goes to chat up Dizzy. Bruce actually seem to get along fairly well. So Graves, Vasco, and Augustus and Medici get together. Having a bit of a sit down. Of course, the big question is who killed Rothstein? Obviously, Graves didn't. Graves kind of, Graves' game was working out just fine. Augustus didn't, and Vasco claims he didn't. So, we also learned that there was a deal arranged between Graves, Medici, and Vasco. Lano shows he can actually be disgustingly charming, even getting a bit of a smile and giggle out of Dizzy. As they talk, though, Dizzy tells Lano her name. And meanwhile, Vasco, Medici, and Graves reminisce in Vasco's wine cellar. And well, Lano basically lets it be known that, yeah, he now knows exactly who Dizzy is. And that he has a message for her from Shepard. That it wasn't her fault. And she says that she still blames herself. And, well, Lano says that, well, he blames her too. And has her from behind by the throat. You see it, we get a bit of a fight between the two, while Vasco, Graves, and Medici are talking. They're actually rather evenly matched. Dizzy's able to get solid hits in on Lano, and also stay standing after being hit by him. Other security forces have shown up, and so Lano grabs a gun from one of them, and talk between Graves, Medici, and Vasco's cut short by the sound of gunfire. With Augustus immediately figuring, oh no, Lano did something, which, well, is true. Realizing that, yeah, Lano is probably taking on Dizzy, and, well, yeah. And then open up with a flashback with Remy at a bar, met up by Jack, but he doesn't have pockets. Or Wiley. No, not Jack. Wiley meets with him. Goes in the bathroom. While he shows up, turns out now he doesn't have a zipper. The room's flooding, and he comes to and discovers his hands are gone. Victor's there talking to him. Apparently, he's been comatose for 3 days. And the two talk. Apparently, Remy could use some air. Meanwhile, Ronnie is in town. He's apparently just came from Cleveland visiting his mom. Now he finds his brother's in the hospital. And grabs a cab. On the roof of the hospital, Victor and Remy are sharing a cigarette with. Well, Remy's smoking a cigarette while Victor holds it for him and talking. Back with Ronnie and the cab driver, a motorcyclist speeds out in front of the cab, causing the driver to slam on the brakes. And the driver says he really hates them, because they act like they own the road. And so Ronnie says, you know what, hey, go after the guy. Give him a taste. And so the cab does just that. And gets into a wreck. As the sun rises, the ambulance is arriving at the hospital, and Victor and Remy are still on the roof talking, and they're not exactly, things aren't exactly going well. It's pretty clear that turns out that the ambulance arriving is carrying Ronnie. And then Remy jumps, landing right on his brother. In Miami, moving on, in Miami, Benito gets a call from Lano. Apparently Lano's just outside of Miami, and he's got a present for Benito. The phone then rings again. And Graves says that whatever Lano's done to Dizzy, he will do to Lano. We also find out that what happened during the firefight was Lano picked up the assault rifle from one of the security guards, one of Bosco's security guards, killed all of them, knocked out Dizzy and threw her in the back of the car, and then continued to shoot the place up while leaving. And then gets a call from Loop. But no, it's actually Cole, still alive. And so Lano asks if Cole killed Loop, and well, Cole kind of says, hey, I'm alive, so do the math. Loop then asks about Jack, and well, and Cole says 1 minus 3 equals. And what Cole ends up saying it means is it equals you're next. Though, before hanging up the phone. Before Cole then hangs up the phone. Though it turns out that Loop is with him and they're at a gun store picking up weaponry. And Cole explains that he really just wanted to mess with Lano, just like he was messing with Loop. Apparently, when Cole came to after getting kicked in the face by Jackie, he went looking for Loop and pulled him out of the ditch. Explains that, taking him out of the woods, I was just having some fun. Apparently, Cole never had any intention of killing him. Though Luke totally intended to kill Cole. Cole explains, Luke needs to lighten up. Apparently Jack hasn't been in contact with Lana for a while either. Which does kind of have Cole curious as to, what that means. Graves calls Lano back, asking how his other call went. Lano's pissed, and then they make some threats to Graves. And explained there was, Croatoa was a failsafe word for Dizzy. She reacted to it. And Graves says, what if he told Lano he had a failsafe word for him? One would calm him down a bit. Or rather, a lot. One would take the edge off of Lano, that edge that Lano likes to live off of. One would make him think twice, turn those brass balls into sour grapes. Of course, Lano says, well, if you did, you'd use it. Graves says, what if I just did? Turns out now, Graves, Vasco, and Medici are in Atlantic City. And the talk with Graves has succeeded in making Lano even more angry. And so, Lano shows up at the Medici house. He's clearly beaten up still from his fight with Dizzy. And he presents his gift. To Lano, or to Benito. Benito pulls the hood off of Dizzy. Seeing that it's Dizzy, and then shoots Lano in the mouth. I mean, right here. A collection as the story moves on, a collection of images. Victor going up a flight of stairs. Graves, Medici, and Vasco in Atlantic City. Mr. Slaughter loading a rifle. Cole and Luke driving. Jackie with the painting he took from Cole taped up on his wall. And then Megan. Been narrating. Apparently she's done a meeting with Darcy and Tibor of the Trust. Basically, the young blood of the Trust. Basically, Megan's kind of been playing Augustus in an effort to take control. Lano, having been shot through one cheek and out the other, runs off, kind of scared, with Benito firing until Creed stops him, explaining that it gives him cover. After a while, he realizes that Lano's gone. However, Crete then calls the rest of the security, explaining the Code 7 and telling them to secure the premises, which means releasing the dogs. Back with Graves, Medici, and Vasco, Augustus says that, their whole thing's, their grand plan, it's off the table. Graves is not happy about this in the slightest. The three younger members of the trust are discussing what they're going to do in their meeting with their upcoming meeting, while Benito tends to Dizzy's injuries. And Lano runs from the dogs. And Cole tries calling Lano, but Lano isn't answering. And Cole finally asks why Loop's involved. Because of his father. And Burnsford says that, yeah, Mr. Hughes should have been one of the Minutemen. And Luke kind of goes back around. He got involved, and he's actually kind of mad. He says maybe he's a little pissed about the fact that the rest of the Minutemen knew his father better than he ever did. One of the dogs catches up to Lano, and he tosses it to one of Augustus's alligators. While in the hotel Jackie's staying in, he gets a visitor, Echo. Lana continues to run from the remaining hounds, and, one of them goes after his foot and actually takes a pretty decent bite out of his shoe. But Lano does manage to escape. Just as either Graves, Bosco, or Medici is killed. Victor talks to Dizzy, and we find out that it was in fact Vasco who was killed. Benio doesn't think that the meeting that the trust is going to have at the Medici house is going to go well. The settlement seems like a big mistake. Megan suggests, however, that he save his opinion for everyone there. Though he explains that he would, but he won't be there. His father's orders. Just be the five of them. Meanwhile, Cole and Loop have stopped to eat on their way to Miami when they spot Jackie's car. And so they go to take care of Jackie. Meanwhile, Graves and Medici are on their way to the Medici household as Miss Darcy shows up. Cole makes his way into Jack's hotel room and catches him and Echo in a compromising position before he promptly shoots Echo square in the head. This, of course, pisses off Jackie, and he wants to know why Cole just shot her, and he explains that, Cole explains he was keeping a promise to a guy he got kind of close with. A little guy with a lot of heart. And Jackie explains that he left Cole alive because Jackie'd lost the appetite for killing. It's a rotten job. Apparently, Luke just got a call from Victor Ray. Graves is sitting down. That's not Tebow, it's Tebow. But yeah. Apparently, the young bucks of the trust are nervous. Or Tebow, in part because of Gus's Medici's making them wait. Benito comes outside to talk to Dizzy, drinking champagne. And it's explained that the place is on lock. Crete said the place is on lockdown and Dizzy's safe. But she says, hey, if Lano got out, he'll get back in. And he promises Benito that she won't let Lano kill him. Meanwhile, Cole kind of explains his theory that the Minutemen were being played since day one. Explaining that what they did in Atlantic City, they thought that was the start, the beginning of the end, because that's the way it was presented. Jackie disagrees, saying that it started when Graves said no to the expansion job. But Cole disagrees, saying that there was no way Graves would have agreed to the Minutemen doing what they were asking, which the trust borders, after all, were written in blood from sea to shining sea. So the trust knew they would get a nut. But it's thought that stealing another country was an excuse for stealing this one from themselves. And they used the Minutemen to do it. They were played. Loop asks if Cole thinks Graves was in on it, and Loop says he's done enough thinking and it's time to know. They get another phone call, however, this time from Lano. Though, unbeknownst to Lano isn't alone. So everyone's arrived for the meeting in Miami. Augustus is actually quite proud of Benito for shooting Lano. Graves, seeing Dizzy alive, hugs her and asks her to forgive him. While Luke's on the phone with Lano, however, Victor walks in. And as they haven't yet cleaned up Echo's body, he's kind of wondering just what kind of sick party they were up to. Lano's still on the phone, and, well, everyone but Jack has guns drawn. And Lano's unseen visitor, Mr. Slaughter, basically hears that Victor's present and rethinks killing Lana. Lano's trying to get Luke, Cole, Victor to kill each other. But there's the sound of a gunshot, and, well, yeah. We then cut to a meeting of the four remaining heads of the trust and Mr. Graves, or Agent Graves. And Augustus does inform Megan that their personal relationship, for the good of the trust, is over. And Augustus asks what the terms of his surrender are. And so the three decided in Omaha that for the good of the trust, the House of Medici stands, but Augustus is just his vote at the table. Thibault further explains that they will accept and value Augustus's counsel, but ultimately he won't have a say in the trust's affairs. It's decided also that the Minutemen are to be reinstated, but under a new agent. With being decided, with Augustus stating that Graves will pick a successor. And Augustus says that while the other three protest, Medici explains that Augustus explains that he will agree to their conditions, but only if they agree to this. And so, it's decided. Then decided that the first order of business is what becomes of House Vasco. Apparently, Javier Vasco will have no heirs, so slicing up is no option anymore. Not after they just finished putting their knives away. And so, Augustus asks Graves to excuse them, and he steps out. Meanwhile, Jackie and the others are disposing of a body. Turns out to be Echo's body, and they wrapped it in the towel, or in the painting. And Victor's been brought up to speed about what's going on, and so they got work to do. Apparently, there's sitting outside the room the room that the trust is in. Dizzy, Benito, and Graves are waiting. Apparently, there's been shouting, and Graves is called back in. The House of Vasco has been given to Graves. And he accepts. And then Augustus resigns, explaining he accepted the trust punishment as his and his alone. He cedes all control of his house to his son. Meanwhile, some of the guards have found something at the Medici compound, have found something thrown on top of part of the barbed wire around the perimeter. Just as Lano sneaks up behind them. Tebow and Darcy are talking, and yeah, they just realized they got played. They got played bad. So, Benito, now head of the House of Medici, is visited by Megan Dietrich, who starts very openly flirting with him, and well, makes her move on him. The next part begins, and Crete discovers Benito dead in the pool. Meanwhile, Cole, Victor, Loop, and Jackie arrive at the Medici compound, find that someone else is already there. Crete vows to find who's responsible for killing Augustus when but Graves says that no, hey, figuring out who's responsible isn't Crete's job. It's Dizzy's. He's naming her his agent. He's naming her the agent of the Minutemen. And well, yeah, the casual racism of the group kind of does come out. But yeah, the Minutemen arrive, and yeah, the shooting begins. And the Medici's security forces don't last long. Victor runs into Mr. Slaughter, his father. The two talk about a bit. Apparently, this is a job that Slaughter's walking away from. Too many grinding axes for him. Meanwhile, things are getting heated between members of Trust, and it's discovered that Tebow is dead. Switchblade stuck in his chest. As Jackie kills yet another member of the Medici security forces, Crete comes upon him, and the two take off their jackets and prepare to go one-on-one. Megan and Graves have a rather heated conversation when Graves goes to talk to Augustus, saying he doesn't know whether to commend or condemn him. As the battle rages on outside, the fight between Crete and Jackie seems to carry over into the alligator enclosure, when it's revealed that it wasn't Augustus that Graves was talking to, but rather Lana. Who pulls an Uzi on Graves, but before he can fire, is shot square in the chest by Dizzy. The fight between Crete and Jackie continues in the alligator enclosure as the alligators close in on the two of them. And, well, you can figure out. I don't think I'd spell out what happens to those two. Meanwhile, Dizzy's trying to figure out just who it was exactly that killed Benito. With both of them explaining, with her and Megan trading barbs about the fact that they both were at least somewhat caring for Benito. Megan walks into her room, however, and, well, turns out someone's covered the floor in gasoline. That someone being Cole, who suggested Dizzy leave. As Megan's about to follow in her father's footsteps. Luke, meanwhile, is trying to hotwire one of the cars so he can, well, get out. He's done. He's just wasted a cadre of people, and doesn't know why. And the worst part is he doesn't feel anything for it. Then tells Vic that he doesn't want to be like him. Mr. Slaughter then pops up and tells Luke that Mr. Hughes would be proud of him. Graves and Augustus continue their discussion. Graves explaining he remembers drunkenly watching the sun come up when the idea of putting the trust power in an attaché made sense. It was a brave new world, a trade-off. Graves interrupts him saying that he remembers that too. Going on to add, it's always the devil you know. We also see that, yes, Cole has also killed Darcy, leaving the trust as simply Augustus, Dietrich, and Graves. And then Graves realizes the truth. Augustus killed Benito. And so Graves shoots Augustus, startling Cole, whose lighter is open and lit, causing him to drop it into the puddle of gasoline. He's unable to catch it before it lands. The explosion killing both Megan and Cole, and knocking Dizzy back on the ground floor. Graves comes upon Dizzy. Want to make sure she's all right. Explaining that years ago, as she basically, you made a move against another house in the trust. And he explains that years ago, Augustus ruined his life, compromised his principles in exchange for giving him the opportunity to offer his principles to other people. Though Dizzy counters this by saying that, Augustus didn't ruin his life. Didn't ruin Graves' life. And the series ends with Dizzy holding a gun up to the underside of Graves' jaw, as Graves says that he knows. And that's it for 100 Bullets. Been a wild ride. Took a lot longer. Honestly, this series took a lot longer than I anticipated it to take, but that's it. Though, as I mentioned earlier, we may be doing. Once I track down I have the first issue of the Lano miniseries. Once I track down the remainder, I will likely do videos on that series or just each issue individually. But we'll be back tomorrow with the weekly comic roundup. But that's all for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.